First of all, who am I?
Betsy Ross.
There is a legend that Betsy Ross, a Philadelphia seamstress.
And what do you know about Betsy Ross? What did she do?
She made the American flag.
Are you sitting down? I just love this one. The Betsy Ross story, it's a fraud. She didn't sew the first flag. That Betsy Ross story is a fraud. At the Betsy Ross house in Philadelphia, they know the story's phony. During an interview, the city government official in charge of the house readily admitted this. But on the tours, they insist on its truthfulness.
And what do we see here?
Her making the flag?
Yes.
They even show the very room where Betsy sewed the flag. Here's where things get really odd. The same person who admitted to us that the story is bogus leads the tours and passes it off as true.
Somebody came knocking on Betsy's door because Betsy was a good
seamstress.
Is it really true that Betsy Ross sewed that first flag?
Now see, there you are going doubting that story.
So they came one night and they knocked on her door and they said, Betsy, we think there's going to be a
War.
and guess what we need?
The reason for the story is not necessarily for its authenticity, but more that we as Americans like that kind of story.
And George had sketched out on a square piece of paper stripes, red and white stripes, and he had taken these stars and sort of sprinkled them on the flag.
There is no diary or no written account or no letter that was sent to anybody.
She said, if I can show you how to cut a 5-pointed star with one snip of my scissors, will you let me include 5-pointed stars in the design?
So we have no documentation that it actually happened.
And in that quiet room, Betsy Ross made the first American flag.
So why in the world did we all get the idea that Betsy made the first flag? Well, it's because of her descendants. In the 1870s, long after she had died, and nearly 100 years after the Revolution, her grandson gave a speech claiming she had stitched the first flag at George Washington's request. His account was demonstrably inaccurate and has been uniformly rejected by professional historians. But the public loved it, and Betsy, a little-known seamstress, was turned into an American hero. This is where the American who actually had something to do with the first flag wound up, in an obscure grave located just down the street from Betsy's house. Historians say if anybody deserves to be remembered in connection with the flag, it's the person buried here, Francis Hopkinson, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, who is known to have submitted a bill to the Navy for helping design the flag.
Yes, I designed the American flag. My heaven's sakes, what an accomplishment.
Robert Johnson plays Hopkinson in small summer shows put on to keep the designer's name alive.
Have you ever seen a pyramid on a dollar bill? Yes, that's the Great Seal of the United States, and guess who designed the Great Seal? Yes, I did.
But all Hopkinson ever got was this small plaque located on the site where his house once stood. By now, you're probably wondering how they could get away with this, passing off things that aren't true. I'll tell you how. By doing it in the name of patriotism. Slap the Patriot label on something and people immediately swallow it up, no questions asked. It also helped that at this time in the nation's history, late 19th century, Americans were eager to embrace patriotism. In the face of tremendous unsettling change, people found it reassuring to take refuge in the past, especially a patriotic past. 1787, Philadelphia. The summer the Founding Fathers are debating the Constitution. The rights of man, freedom, liberty.
It was a new idea in the world, and they liked it.
What is it that the people in Philadelphia are all riled up about? The separation of powers, federal versus state rights?
Martha, do you realize the present situation in this country?
No, what's got everybody stirred up is the news that a sorcerer is on the loose.
We interrupt this program for a special bulletin.
Once again, it is mob action in the streets of Philadelphia 2 months after a woman was attacked in downtown Philadelphia for allegedly practicing witchcraft. She has been attacked again. She was chased for blocks, but this time she was pelted with rocks.
Stole the witch! Ah! Stole her!
We do not yet know the woman's condition. More details later on Channel 7 News.
I don't know about you, but this isn't the sort of history I learned in school about the Founding Fathers. But in 1787, a woman actually was attacked for allegedly practicing sorcery. This really happened.
This really happened.
Historian John Butler.
That there was still a deep fear of witchcraft, a deep fear of someone who was manipulating unknown forces, weird forces, strange forces, occult forces in this society, which means that people have a belief that somehow those forces can get at them, can do something to them.
To be sure, whatever the average folks were believing, the Founding Fathers did not dabble in the occult. They weren't even too keen on religion. Which brings us to our next myth, that the Founding Fathers were deeply religious.
I find the name of God writ large on the foundation stone of this country's life.
We're probably more religious than the society that created the American Revolution. 60% of Americans belong to churches today, 20% belonged in 1776. I would argue that America in 1990s is a far more deeply religious society, more religiously informed, whose politics are more driven by religion than America was in 1776.
You know, if you tell the Founding Fathers, you're going to have to, look, get the Bible out of your schools, no more teaching the Ten Commandments. If they said that from London, as I've said, the Founding Fathers would have responded with 3 little words: lock and load.
You listen to the conservatives and they say, hey, the United States was founded as a religious country. True? Not true?
It's simply not true. Religion played very little role in the American Revolution, and it played very little role in the making of the Constitution.
Professor Butler says few of the Founding Fathers were religious. Take George Washington.
Washington thought religion was important for the culture, but he was not a pious man himself.
And which Founding Fathers went to church? Well, Washington rarely did. Jefferson rarely did. John Adams did. Franklin did not. Hamilton, for most of his life, did not.
This was a secular society that also saw the dangers of an association between religion and the state. Most of the wars from 1300 to 1800 had been religious wars. And the wars that these men knew about in particular were the wars of religion that were fought over the Reformation, in which Catholics and Protestants slaughtered each other, stuffed Bibles into the slit stomachs of dead soldiers so that they would literally eat their words. This was the world of government involvement with religion that these men knew, and it's a world they wanted to reject.
But there did come a time after the Revolution when Americans finally did get religion, right?
America became a kind of spiritual hothouse in the 19th century. Not only did the quantity of religion go up, but so did its proliferation in doctrine.
So why do we think that the founders believed all of these things if they didn't? It's because it makes us feel good. But there's another reason we get the founders wrong. It has to do with politics. Politicians are always invoking the name of the founders in support of their own positions. They have figured out it's helpful having the founders on your side. It's like having God on your side. The problem with using the old argument, if the Founding Fathers were alive today, they'd believe in such and such, is that they're not alive. They're dead.
I think it's very clear what our Founding Fathers wanted.
Nobody has a clue where they'd stand on the issues if they suddenly sprang to life today. Is there a single Founding Father who'd favor women voting, blacks voting, blacks and whites intermarrying, blacks holding the same jobs as whites and sending their kids to the same schools? Hardly. But Republicans, Democrats, socialists, fundamentalists, it doesn't matter. They all use the Founding Fathers, or anyone else they can get their hands on, to support whatever happens to be on their agenda.
As Winston Churchill says, we will never, never, never give in.
It's not just the politicians who get the Founding Fathers wrong, so do the schools. Remember those little history quizzes you took as a kid where you had to match a person and a quotation?
Okay, I'm going to give you 5 quotes.
A lot of times what the teacher told you was the right answer was the wrong answer.
First quote is,
I know not what course others may take, but as for me, Give me liberty or give me death.
Give me liberty or give me death.
Patrick Henry.
Patrick Henry, right? Well, sure sounds like him, but you know what? Historians doubt he ever made the remark. It first surfaced in a 19th century biography written long after he died and considered pretty unreliable. The author, William Wirt, made up so many things about Henry that historians routinely ask, is it fact or is it Wirt?
That government is best which governs least.
Thomas Jefferson.
Sorry, not Thomas Jefferson. Henry David Thoreau. Now, Jefferson, of course, made similar remarks. But after he became president, he became a big proponent of federal government action. In 1806, he actually proposed a constitutional amendment giving the federal government broad powers, namely to establish a big university system, a federal roads project, and a lot of other big public works projects. All in all, you'd have to say the schools do a pretty good job of teaching our kids about the Founding Fathers. But they leave out some of the interesting stuff.
Quick, that key I gave you.
Take Ben Franklin.
What is it for?
We think of Franklin as a gung-ho revolutionary.
Benjamin Franklin, disciple of democracy.
But he wasn't. Historians say he came late to the Patriot cause. He even supported the hated British stamp tax until a mob threatened to burn his house down.
We must hang together, or else most assuredly we'll all hang separately.
And on the eve of the revolution, he and some friends were negotiating a lucrative land deal with the Crown to develop what would become the state of West Virginia.
This nation failed. What hope is left for freedom?
Nathan Miller is the author of a book on scandals in American history.
They had to hand out pieces of the action, shall we say, to various members of the government in Britain.
They were resorting to bribes?
Bribes and everything, bribes, pieces of the action, everything you can name. It was done. I mean, it was accepted. There was nothing illegal about it.
Was Franklin implicated?
Of course, up to his neck. And most of the British cabinet ministers of the period before the American Revolution were implicated.
No man e'er was glorious who was not laborious.
And then there are Poor Richard's Proverbs.
A penny saved is a melon bought. No. Let me see, a penny's, what was it my wife said? A penny spent is a penny enjoyed. No, that won't do it all. Let me see, a penny saved.
A penny saved is a penny earned, he said. But Franklin himself wasn't a saver. He repeatedly overdrew his bank account.
Oh, look at that. That's beautiful. Good. Gotta have that. Oh, over here. Got any blue ones here? Blue ones. Gotta have blue ones. What do you think? Isn't that it? That's me. Wonderful.
Then there is his old saying, time is money. But Franklin himself loved leisure, and at age 42 retired as a printer so he could sit and relax.
More!
And we never tell the kids, maybe with good reason, the true history of drinking in America. The truth is, the Founding Fathers loved to drink. Historian William Rohrbaugh is the author of The Alcoholic Republic.
John Adams drank a quart of hard cider every morning for breakfast. I don't think he drank as much whiskey as some of the others. Washington himself owned and operated a distillery for quite some time. Jefferson, being somewhat favorable to France, decided to try to recreate French vineyards at Monticello. David Thompson, who was the secretary to the Continental Congress during the Revolution and then stayed on for many years, was asked by someone to write his autobiography, and he said the true history of the Revolution could not be written down because most of it took place in taverns.
What he knows about the Founding Fathers is that we revere them, and we do.
Paul Revere's ride, which ignited the American Revolution.
Now that's a lot of reverence, American-style reverence. But have we always revered the Founding Fathers? The answer is no. Take a look at Jefferson. While he was hugely popular initially, he subsequently was neglected by Americans for nearly 100 years. Until the 1920s, Monticello, Jefferson's homestead, stood in ruins. The chief fundraiser for the project to purchase and restore the place complained he couldn't even raise enough to make the down payment. Jefferson didn't get on the nickel until the 1930s. He didn't get a memorial in Washington, D.C. until the 1940s, long after Lincoln and Washington. Some people plain didn't like him, like Teddy Roosevelt. Couldn't stand Jefferson. Condemned him as a weakling, a slave of the people. Then there's Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury. He didn't become a genuine founding father hero until late in the 19th century. And Ben Franklin, he had to wait till the end of the 19th century, too. Hi.
Good afternoon.
Just one.
$2.50.
And then there's Paul Revere, who's so famous now people pay good money to get in to see his old house in Boston. Fact is, the horse-flying hero didn't become a national hero until Henry Wadsworth Longfellow wrote his little poem about Revere's midnight ride. That was in the 1860s. Historians say before then, many Americans hadn't ever even heard of Revere. Okay, so Revere became a member of that most exclusive club in America, the Founding Fathers fraternity, because of a poem. Why did the others suddenly become mythologized as heroes? Because they suddenly became useful. Jefferson became a hero in the 1930s. Why? Because the Democrats needed a New Deal hero. And Jefferson, the spokesman of the common man, fit right in. Hamilton became a hero in the late 19th century, the era of the businessman, because businessmen needed a hero. And Hamilton, the patron saint of bankers, fit right in. Franklin became a hero in the late 19th century, too, because he fit. He knew the value of a buck, and he bragged about it. Perfect hero for a materialistic age.
Time. What can I say about time? Time is money. That's it.
One of the things we Americans can be thankful for is that the Founding Fathers were real patriots. Probably no other country had as many Founding Fathers to sing about as we do. Like Ethan Allen, the fellow the furniture chain's named after. You may remember Allen. He's the fellow who, with Benedict Arnold a few feet behind him, became the hero of Ticonderoga, a British fort in upstate New York, located next to Lake Champlain.
Allen strode up these stairs to demand and receive the surrender of Ticonderoga in the name of the great Jehovah and the Continental Congress.
But I hate to tell you this, Ethan Allen's not quite the Revolutionary War hero he's made out to be. And you know what? Neither are the Green Mountain Boys. To find out what Ethan Allen was really like, you have to go to Vermont, his home. Then as now, Vermont was a beautiful place. Just takes the breath away. But in the 1770s, New York claimed jurisdiction over much of the area. And that put New York and the people of Vermont in conflict. Enter Ethan Allen and the Green Mountain Boys. This is another one of those stories you never hear anything about for some reason. Maybe because it's just too shocking. Here's what happened. To force New York to give up control of the area, Ethan Allen and his Green Mountain Boys launched a campaign of terror against the New York officials who lived here. They burned down people's homes, destroyed their mills, then set up a kangaroo court in which they tried and convicted the New Yorkers of various crimes, eventually sentencing them to be whipped. In his hometown in Bennington, Vermont, they still treat Allen like a hero. Local apologists excuse his excesses.
To the best of my knowledge, in all the controversy, there was never a fatality. I mean, people were whipped, people were threatened, people were intimidated, but no one was killed.
Allen did do hero's work at Fort Ticonderoga. But afterwards, he secretly negotiated with the British to take Vermont out of the war in exchange for the recognition of Vermont's land claims, which, incidentally, would have netted him 250,000 acres. At his home, it's explained that Allen negotiated with the British merely to put pressure on Congress to recognize Vermont as a state. New York had been against this and holding things up. But many historians believe Allen was a scoundrel, perhaps even a downright traitor, some American patriot. By now, you're undoubtedly wondering, why haven't you heard of this Ethan Allen business before? Simple answer, denial. We've all got this idea that the Founding Fathers were above politics, that they were saints, and nobody can argue us out of it.
I want to say this to the television audience.
Politicians today, bad.
People have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Founding Fathers, good. But were they all goody two-shoes? Were they all above politics?
In all probability, politics was even more corrupt than they are today.
More corrupt? Yeah.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Anti-federalist kidnap in Pennsylvania.
Politicians were kidnapped so they couldn't vote.
Revolutionary War vets cheated by politicians. Read all about it.
Leading members of Congress conspired to swindle veterans out of their pensions.
Bribes paid to Georgia legislators.
In Georgia, virtually every member of the state legislature was caught taking a bribe in a huge land scandal.
I might appreciate this. Thank you.
In short, no matter what we've been led to believe and no matter what the politicians say, the Founding Fathers weren't saints. Neither, for that matter, were the people. Remember the woman accused of witchcraft?
We interrupt this program for a special bulletin.
Sad news to report. The woman cornered and attacked by a mob 8 days ago has passed away. It is believed she died from wounds inflicted during that incident.
We're ending this show on that sad note. It's a good reminder of the difficult odds the founders faced in establishing a free and enlightened country. That's no myth. I'm Rick Schenkman.